Thanks, Sherry. All right, I have 10 o'clock here. Sherry and folks at the church, I believe you're on mute, so I can't hear you, which is fine. But if you need to communicate to me, just wave me down or come off mute and give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. All right, beautiful. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Evan Wilson, and I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester. I'll be leading today's summer service around the themes of justice and equity rooted in our UU values. Special thanks goes out to tech team who is helping facilitate today's hybrid service. I'd very much like to be in person with everyone, but have chosen to Zoom in from home after a recent exposure to COVID. So that we can all have an enjoyable experience over Zoom. I ask that folks mute themselves and stay on mute until the appropriate time when invited to speak. As we gather today in person and online, I'd like to invite you to first become grounded and settled, feeling supported by the earth wherever you are. So as you are able, I invite you to sit up tall in your seat with your feet placed flat on the ground with your back upright. And if you're comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Next, I have a virtual chalice lighting. Folks can see the chalice lighting up here on the screen. It is titled A Community of Faith by Judith L. Quarles. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. So again, welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester's summer Sunday morning worship service. I'm glad that you've joined us this morning, either in person or online. We hope that this service gives you an opportunity to pause for a few minutes to gather in community so that we might care for each other, take a moment to reflect on our own well-being, and discover opportunities for spiritual refreshment and service in the wider world. Throughout the summer are a variety of summer services that we hope you'll take part of. You can visit the website www.uucworcester.org for more information on summer services. For those of you joining us on Zoom, for safety purposes, and so we might come to better know you, please list your name in your video feed. Please note that the service is being live streamed on Facebook and is being recorded for future availability on the church YouTube channel, as well as our website, Worship Archive. Once again, welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. For our call to worship, I'd like to make a land acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded lands of the Nipmuc people. I want to acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removals from this territory. I honor and respect the many indigenous peoples still living on these lands. In making this acknowledgement, I affirm indigenous rights and commit to dismantling the systems of oppression that have displaced indigenous peoples. Offering a land acknowledgement is a way to constantly remember that we are on occupied indigenous land. It is critical to reframe the stories we have told ourselves for generations. In reality, our connection to the land where we live, work, and worship is predicated on the history of settler colonialism. The photo I have included is a sign that appears throughout Worcester. If you read between the lines, you'll see that Worcester was seized through violence and war from its original inhabitants. While acknowledging injustices is a critical first step, it cannot be the only action we take. Just last month, the Pope visited Canada to offer an apology for church-run boarding schools where Indigenous youth were forced to leave behind their culture and language. While such atrocities happened before our lifetime, it is important for us to learn this important history and to support efforts at the local, state, and national level to bring increased rights and resources to Native communities. Here in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, there are many active tribes who are working to rebuild their language and culture, and there are many ways to learn about and support Indigenous culture and people. On the slide here, I have a few that I've highlighted. First is a local documentary produced by Holy Cross. It's available on YouTube. It's called Pakachog, Where the River Bends. And it's a kind of a local documentary which covers the original settlement of the Pakachog people, which is now on present day Holy Cross land. An interesting perspective on Native populations here in Worcester. Just below that is a picture of the National Day of Mourning. This is an annual event held both in person in Plymouth, Massachusetts, as well as online on November 24th, otherwise known as Thanksgiving. On the top right are a few different images that speaks to the Massachusetts Indigenous agenda. And so there have been activists that have been pushing at the state level to remove the state flag and seal, which that has actually passed in recent legislative years. So you can see that there's the cross-out sign through a formerly racist depiction of a Native American. And so that is actually being removed. There's a commission that's going to study what a new state flag and seal would look like. And then you can see some of those other images with other legislative initiatives. There's also a push to try to ban Native sports mascots, as well as pass local laws that will protect Native American heritage artifacts. And then finally, for anyone interested in learning more about local Native culture, the Tomaquac Museum is located down in Rhode Island, and the Unitarian Universalist Association chose the Tomaquac Museum as a partner in recent years when they held General Assembly in Rhode Island. So that is just over the border and a wonderful site to learn and to study. So an invitation beyond just a land acknowledgement, which many people are noting as potentially performative, moving beyond just an acknowledgement to thinking about how can we be learning and taking action is also important. So I'd like to start off with a few readings. I have four very short quotes from four individuals who have been in conversation with me as I've been thinking about these themes of justice and equity for today's talk. So the short quotes go in order. First by Robin Wall Kimmerer, an author and member of the Potawatomi tribe. Next is the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and then finished by James Baldwin and Bell Hooks, both authors and social activists. Even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift. Robin Wall Kimmerer. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. James Baldwin. One of the most vital things we do to sustain ourselves is by building communities of resistance, places where we know we are not alone. Bell Hooks. So we come to that time in our service when we pause and consider that which we carry in our hearts and minds this morning, joys and sorrows that are given another measure of meaning because we have the capacity to share them with a group of friends that claim us as a co-journeyer. I invite you to raise your virtual hand or come off mute, share your name first so that we might come to better know each other, and share your brief joy or sorrow. If you're joining us online and wish to share your joy or sorrow via chat, please add it to the comments preceded by "please read" so that we can find it quickly and speak your words aloud for all to hear. Are there any joys or sorrows? Maybe we can start in our physical room. None? Lovely to hear. Anyone, let me check the chat. While folks are thinking, I can share a joy of mine is that I recently celebrated a wedding of a dear childhood friend of mine, which brought me out to Hawaii. So it was a beautiful trip and a beautiful celebration. So wishing my friend well. Here is a joy from Bernadette Nelson. I had successful surgery in recovery mode and sending sympathies to recently departed members. I see Beth's hand.
It takes me too long to type, so I'll just say I'm anticipating the joy of spending a week, almost a week, with all my grandchildren in one place, and my mom, and Evans and my 4 children. Evanses, not Evan, but my husband Evans and our 4 children, adult children, will be with us up at Bow Lake in New Hampshire. So keeping fingers crossed that everybody stays COVID-free so we can all be together.
All right. Any more joys or sorrows to share today?
The counselor that passed away. One of the counselors at AgCare passed away the other day. So like suddenly, ill. Right?
Thanks for sharing, Susan. We'll hold them in our thoughts. So I invite us all to collectively embrace all that was said and all that was left unsaid with 3 deep breaths. So at this time, I'd like you to participate in an offering to support the work and the mission of this church and our congregation. If you're joining us remotely, you are welcome to participate in the offering through our website, or I've provided it up here on the screen, my preferred method, which is text to give. So if you have never done text to give, you text 508-231-5335 with a dollar amount, and then followed by the word, all one word, weekly offering. If it's the first time that you've ever done it, it might prompt you to like enter in your bank account information or a card. So what I typically do is save that UCW text to give in my phone, and you are welcome to give an offering via text. And I'd also like to take a moment to give you all an offering. And so during the offering, I'm going to play a short video from Side with Love. And Side with Love is a public advocacy campaign that seeks to harness love's power to stop oppression, and it is sponsored by the UUA. So I'm just going to pull up a short video. If I can find it, 1 minute.
As Unitarian Universalists, our faith demands that we put our values into practice. We know that both our people and our planet are sacred. We know the beloved community is not complete without the sacred presence of everyone. Every gender, every sexuality, every voice, everybody is invited to side with love.
Side with Love is the hub for all of our outfacing justice work of our association. No matter who you are or where you are, there is a place for you to side with love. You can put your faith into action through one of our signature campaigns, You the Vote, Create Climate Justice, Uplift, and Love Resists.
We invite Unitarian Universalists to develop their leadership and organizing skills, deepen their political and spiritual grounding, and take meaningful action in solidarity with our partners to build a world in which all of our communities are free and thriving. Though the questions may change, how to achieve climate justice, who to elect, our response remains the same: side with love. When our electoral process was under attack in 2020 and 2021, UUs made more than 3 million contacts to turn people out to the polls, talk about our values, and defend our democracy.
When our partners asked us to show up in solidarity to stop Line 3, hundreds of UUs participated in direct action and public witness from the Northwoods of Minnesota to the streets of Washington, D.C. When Texas, Alabama, and Florida passed legislation attacking LGBTQ people, UU showed up in force online and in their own communities to speak up to protect our siblings and to fight for trans and queer lives.
When the president broke his promises about expanding immigrant detention, UUs showed up for distributed actions across the country, demanding the immediate closure of all detention centers.
To side with love means to put our values into action. And no matter who you are, or what your skills or your passions, there is a role for you. Whether it is joining one of our volunteer squads, participating in our organizing school, coming to one of our skill ups, joining one of our monthly community of praxis meetings, or taking action through our Action Center and joining us to learn together about the issues through our political education webinars. Everyone has a place in our shared work for justice. There are many ways for you and your congregation to side with love. We need all of us, including you, to be a part of our shared work for justice and liberation. Get started right now by texting LOVE to 866-533-1494.
All right, my reverse offering to you all, which I believe now brings us to my reflection, which I'd like to start with a quote from Amanda Gorman's poem, The Hill We Climb. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. So today's reflection I've titled Grounding Ourselves in UU Values for Justice and Equity. So my reflections today are rooted in my own unique journey as a Unitarian Universalist, English-speaking, able-bodied, white, cisgendered, gay man. Cisgendered meaning that the body I was born into matches my preferred gender identity. All of these identities and associated experiences, living and seeing life through these lenses, has brought me to where I am today. When I thought about what to share with the UUCW community, what came to mind was my recent work organizing and thinking about justice and equity. I see this work as being part of my own spiritual journey, as well as part of my spiritual community. There have been many others who have fought for justice and equity before me, and there will need to be many more doing this work for years to come. Like I shared from Bell Hooks earlier, What has been so powerful to support my organizing efforts has been the community of resistance, a place where I know I am not alone, and I have found that here at UUCW. I grew up as a young person in the Unitarian Church and truly appreciated Unitarian Universalism's 7 principles, which became a set of guiding values for me. I will quickly list them off for those that need a reminder. The first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The second principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Fourth, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Fifth, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Sixth, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Yet, simply believing in these principles alone left me feeling a bit hollow. In May 2020, when George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota at the hands of police, I felt as if I needed to do more. I remembered wrestling with the fact that my UU faith and values had brought me to a place of admirable ethics, but not to a place of action. I remember sitting in the pews here at UUCW, thinking of myself as a nice, white, progressive UU, and I wondered, what else can I do? Joining a movement seemed scary and overwhelming. I asked myself, am I equipped to do this work? Can I sustain the work that lies ahead? I definitely had more questions than answers. One source of motivation came from the work I had been doing in my personal life to eat better and to become more physically active, which focused on starting small and building habits. Atomic Habits by James Clear details many ways to think about behavior change by boiling down our aspirational goals into tiny steps. In order to become a runner, it's not about running a single race, but about building a habit of running, dedicating yourself to lacing up your shoes and taking that often difficult first step, after which many more will follow. The old adage of you are what you eat became you are what you do. So again, moving away from that label of I am a good UU, I thought more about, well, what can I actually be doing to take that on myself? So I hope in sharing my stories today is not to inspire guilt, but rather to inspire reflection, introspection, and curiosity. Look around us today, whether it's police brutality and institutionalized racism, the climate crisis, the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol, the reversal of Roe v. Wade. There are so many examples of injustice and inequity. The question then seems not if, but what we should focus our attention on. Adrienne Maree Brown, an author and activist, speaks about the importance of having humility when it comes to justice work. She writes, it's critical to have the humility to learn, the humility to be taught, and the humility to have teachers. This notion of being open to learn and recognizing that we have much to learn was a critical first step for me. As someone who has walked through life with significant privileges, I work to put on a lens of awareness. I often use my glasses as a reminder of my lens, so that I can be more cognizant of the impacts of injustice and inequity that exist around me. I know all too well that I'm able to live my life going to work, to the store, walking down the street, from a seat of privilege, and may not experience bias, microaggressions, or hardship as a result of long-seated structural marginalization. Yet it is through my own learning and experiences where I've exposed myself to historic and contemporary examples of injustice that has helped to build my lens of awareness. Personally, it took family trips as a young person to Mexico I remember my grandmother had retired down to Mexico. So taking a trip in middle school was really incredibly eye-opening for me to go across the border and to see such economic dissonance, to see the poverty that people were living in, and to see how people lived on such little. Going to Mexico was also quite eye-opening to get an early introduction to colonialism. So I know not everyone has taken the social science path. I studied international development at college, but for me, studying colonialism and thinking about travel has also opened up to my eyes to the nature by which capitalism has really undergirded our systems of oppression. So later in college, I traveled to Nicaragua, to Central America, where I learned firsthand about the Contra War funded by the CIA. I also studied abroad in Namibia in Southern Africa, a country just next to South Africa that had a history of apartheid, which really mirrored the US history of creating homelands or creating reservations for Native Americans and creating a racialized geographic discriminatory system. So all of these experiences couldn't help but create my lens with which to see the world. And for me, really understanding this prioritization of money and resource exploitation helped me see some of the inner workings of inequity that is carried forth today. So back to May 2022, when I felt ready to deal with my own dissonance. The dissonance between my deeply held values for justice and equity, but a lack of action to support those values. Where did I turn? I turned here to my faith community. UUCW's Side with Love Task Force and the 8th Principle Task Force, along with UU Mass Action, became places for me to bring my questions, curiosities, and bias towards action. I shed the insecurities about what if I'm not good enough, what if I can't sustain this work, what if I'm not doing it right, and began to acknowledge that any steps I took that aligned my values with my work was worthy. While engaging in this work, I also found an incredible source of inspiration from my fellow UCW community members. Coming together on a regular basis, it was easy to see that I was a bit younger than others who are using their time in retirement for activism or justice work. This inspired me. Going back to my work of habit change, I know that we cannot expect ourselves to change overnight, and instead have to continually work at and invest in our habits. So I thought to myself, if I want to be the type of person who is using my retirement for volunteerism and action, I need to start now. Prime the pump, as they say, so that I'll be all the more practiced and prepared for later in life. I share this too, so that you may also look around and notice all those within our community who contribute to important causes. And remember, and serve as a reminder that if your goal is to lift 25 pounds, we can't start with that 25-pound weight, but instead start doing curls with the 2-pound weight until we can build up, our strength over time. The beauty of being engaged in work to support justice and equity is that there are so many places of need. With limited time and energy, there's no way we can all take on every single issue. But what's important is that we take action based on what moves us. Our collective work becomes stitched together into a powerful quilt of resistance. Just over the week when I was away with friends on vacation, I was sharing similar stories and sharing that the same, testament that, I started with this notion of trying to eat the whale and, that not working, right? And realize that it just starts with tiny little bit of bites. And so for me, I try to remind people that it's do work where we can. If we have kids or grandchildren or nieces or nephews, how can we buy books that might inspire them to be thinking more broadly? In our workplaces, are there actions that we could take to advance equity and justice in our neighborhoods, etc.? So when we start to maintain that lens of awareness of the need to align our values and our actions, we become open to more and more experiences, which in turn changes how we view the world. So if there's a voice inside that asks you whether our small drop in a bucket is making any change, listen for the yes, knowing that our increased awareness is helping build and increase our ability to learn and act and inspire those around us. When speaking about action, I know that this was an area where I felt wary. How and where could I find time to take action when I work full time and hardly feel like I have much personal time on nights and weekends to affect change? What I found is twofold. One, taking action in community and through networks can be a powerful way to impact change. And two, that there's a range of action that we can all take. By tapping into the Side with Love group here at UUCW, I found a regular community that I could learn from, a key action that we often overlook. Finding a group of people where you can explore and discuss issues of equity and justice has been inspiring. Side with Love is the UUA's national campaign for justice and is home to an endless supply of resources and materials for learning and action. The Side with Love group, along with others from our community, has showed up at rallies and vigils and spoken to the media. Showing up in the streets has been new to me, but has helped me feel less alone and offers the community a physical manifestation of resistance for others to see. Expanding to the statewide level, UU Mass Action has become another group that has helped me take action in line with my UU values. UU Mass Action is one of the many statewide action groups organizing UUs to take action at the state level to advance issues of justice. UU Mass Action organizes monthly action hours where we log on to Zoom and take actions ranging from phone calls, emails, petition signing, and more to advance initiatives driven by frontline organizations fighting for justice. Their annual advocacy day at the State House has also helped me foster a relationship with my state representative and senator. What once felt like a scary and intimidating task to reach out to my own elected officials has now become second nature. I've also found other ways to be active in the community by joining Showing Up for Racial Justice Worcester, SURJ Worcester. SURJ is a nationwide volunteer-led anti-racist organization that seeks to support the work of local Black, Indigenous, people of color organizations and advance an anti-racist culture amongst white people. One of their practices is to pass the hat for a local BIPOC organization every month. This is another way we can take action with our wallet. I've set aside money each month and make a contribution through SURJ to local BIPOC organizations. So whether it is through learning, advocacy work, service, financial contributions, know there are many ways we can put our values into action. And what's important is not to second guess ourselves, but rather to lean into action. And when taking action, it's critical to hold ourselves accountable and reflect on whether the work we're doing is merely for appearances or whether our heart and mind is also behind the work. It's one thing to like a post online and move on from it. And it's another to like a post online while also reading more about an issue, talking with others, and keeping your eyes open to how a particular issue might manifest in our local community. As long as you're open to, as well as being open to the ways that you can support justice around that issue. As I start to near the end of my reflection, I also want to share that my own path towards more action has also connected me with the Eighth Principle movement within Unitarian Universalism. The eighth principle movement recognizes that despite 7 principles dedicated to justice, equity, compassion, and peace, that we as individuals and as a collection of congregations still have work to do when it comes to dismantling racism and other oppressions. It has been incredibly meaningful to work alongside other leaders here at UUCW to engage in a cycle of thinking, acting, and reflecting about how we can advance racial equity here at UUCW and how we can do so as part of a larger movement of UUs. While there doesn't necessarily feel like there's a roadmap for our work ahead, what does feel present is interest, curiosity, and commitment for this work. I hope you will continue to be inspired towards action by our shared UU values, your shared UUCW community, and a network of individuals, past, present, and future, who have carried and will carry this work forward. So next I have a closing. I know we have a little bit more time, but it is a beautiful poem, The Hill We Climb. Folks might remember this poem from President Biden's inauguration. So I will just take a moment to pull up this video, which is Amanda Gorman reciting The Hill We Climb.
7 o'clock, I think we should begin.
The hill we climb. Mr. President, Madam Vice President, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but this doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, and characters of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour. But within it, we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from our bronze-pounded chests, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and dutiful, will emerge battered but beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
So thank you again. Only if we are
Amanda
brave
Gorman,
enough
it's
to
such a
see
pleasure to
it.
have you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, YouTube's still going on. Only if we're brave enough to see it, only if we are brave enough to be it. So those are the end of my prepared words today. So it brings us to finish a little earlier than 11, which for some people might be their happiest Sunday, but I thought I could also open it up to anyone that would like to share some thoughts or reflections or questions, just still knowing that today's service is being live streamed over our platforms.
Can you hear us, Evan?
I can, yeah.
There we go. Okay. If anybody would like to chat, we can.
Hi, this is David Fields. I'm just going to get a picture of you. You could look straight ahead. What would you want everybody to see on the internet? There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Nice smile.
Couldn't get that very fun.
I'm sorry, this is totally off the subject of today's topic, but
That's
I
okay.
want to let you guys know next Sunday, picnic at Regatta Point at Lake Quinsigamond.
That's an important way to come together in our community. And Beth Posner Waldron is also on Zoom today. Beth, do you want to give a plug for your upcoming summer service?
Because it's not just me. It'll be me and Mara Pentlarge and Lynn Gastila. So we're all members of the Side with Love Task Force and the Get Out and Vote team. So we're going to be talking some more about putting our faith and values into action.
And
So
I
don't
think
avoid coming here because you think we're going to ask you to do something.
The week after next is going to be Beth and Mara talking more about. Yeah.
And I think I see Ruth there, right? I know Ruth has been doing work with the Garden On, and Garden On is also doing a tour of the garden for an upcoming summer service as well. So that will be another one not to miss.
Thank you, Evan. I really like your service.
Thanks, Susan.
And your personal reflections were amazing. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Ruth.
What was the book that you talked about habits? Atomic Habits. He's good. Oh, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, it's called Atomic Habits, Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear.
I need that.
Yeah.
So Evan, I know that there had been some talk about a book club around like 8th principle stories. Has any more development been made on that process?
Yeah, the 8th principle hasn't met. We're taking a little bit of break over the summer, but I do know that let me just run. I'm trying to think where that book is. I think the book that I've heard from Mara is called Defund Fear. And I believe that it's also a book that the UUA has chosen for like an all group read. So I think that was something that we were hoping to join forces for. So I've bought it. I haven't read it yet, but it's called Defund Fear. Thanks, Beth. Beth, if you put it in front of yourself, people can see it.
Something's her filter. She's got that blur filter behind her.
Sorry, that blurry view, it's not.
So yeah, if anyone's looking to get it from the library or as an audiobook, Defund Fear.
Ruth is making lists.
Well, we have a little bit of time for virtual coffee hour too. If anyone would like to share things that they didn't maybe share for Joys and Sorrows earlier.
Oh, I just said I need real coffee. Not virtual.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I have something.
Dave, by all means, come off mute.
Hi, yeah, thank you for your talk, Evan. I appreciate hearing about your journey. I know I respect the work you've done with the congregation, everybody that most of the folks that are online, how committed you are to living out the UU values. This kind of a specific one. It's just been on my mind because I watched a couple of a really good interview of Dr. Ira Helfand with the Physicians for Social Responsibility, but remembering that it's kind of particular, and I don't mean to be dire because I think it is really just about living with intention and not just thinking it's all inevitable. But the 77th anniversary of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki just passed, and it seems that more than ever the members of the main nuclear powers are, I mean, it's kind of connected to your talk in a way that it's about forces of power and domination that are saying that could rule the world in a certain way. I know people don't, it's not in folks' consciousness now, but at the beginning of the war in Russia and Ukraine, what it made it so much more of a greater concern to everybody is that that threat's very real. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but just one to remember. And I don't mean to be dark about it, because I think it's just not relying on luck that people just hold all these concerns with intention.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, Dave. Yeah, I think I had notes this wide to inform my talk today and had to whittle it down. And, I think one of them was, like, how do we hold all these things? I didn't even, in my list of challenges and problems that are plaguing us today, I didn't even zoom out to thinking about all these armed conflicts. And, for me, I try to hold on to a little bit of them, and just like you say, kind of like with intention. I think we should be hurting a bit and feeling, what's going on. But it's that balance, right? I don't think it is useful to become overwhelmed and to despair. But if we are not recognizing and remembering them at all, we aren't walking with it in our daily lives. So, I think about it, it's that same way of, it's okay if we can't take on the whale, but can we take on the fish? So like, can we, for me, I think an important part for me is just to stay informed and to, stay on top of the news so that, I can kind of be in community with people as well. So no, I appreciate you bringing that up.
How's everybody staying cool today?
Here.
Yeah, we've got the air conditioner and fan on in the classroom here. It was kind of a good choice to be inside.
When I told Sherry I needed to zoom in, she said, okay, we'll turn on the air conditioning. I do love the tent though.
I'm really glad you all did. Facebook didn't work today, so I was late coming in and missed doing Joys and Sorrows. So does anybody mind if I throw it in?
No, please, Cheryl.
I just got back from this trip of a lifetime that Bruce and I had planned back before COVID happened. Originally, we were doing the Baltic on a cruise ship, and it closed down St. Petersburg, obviously, and then they closed down Helsinki. So we switched what we were doing, and we went to Greenland. And that I spent 18 days on a cruise ship, which is why I'm not sitting with you. I don't know whether I'm carrying it or not. It was all over the ship. They were quarantining people, but we all wore masks, so we're probably okay. But I woke up with a migraine this morning. So let's hope it's just a migraine because it's too hot and not COVID, because this headache is awful. But I wanted to say that Greenland was life-changing to me, much in the same way, Evan, you were talking about Namibia and Mexico. Greenland, when we were getting off, the towns are really small and they're almost completely Inuit. And they call themselves Greenlanders. They speak Greenlandish, which is an Inuit language. And they are under Danish rule. They don't like it. They would like it not to be that way. You can kind of pick that up. I mean, I'm on a cruise ship, I'm on a cruise tour. Most of the people I'm with are very, very rich people, otherwise they couldn't be there. And it was just so remarkable to me to see active colonialism and some of it happening. Two of the things that really stuck out, there are no doctors or dentists. Nobody has any teeth. They live on an entire protein diet with just a little bit of root vegetables, no real greenery. People on the cruise ship take food from the ship and pass it out to kids. I didn't know that. Next time I go, and I will go again, I will do that. They go to school, in primary school, in they're towns and they are taught by other Inuit people. And they do it all in Greenlandish. And in order for them to get beyond 7th grade, they have to suddenly learn Danish. And all their teachers only speak Danish in the high school. So they are stuck. They have to learn Danish, and then they have to get fluent enough in a third language to go away from Greenland to go to university, and most don't, but some do. And then they have to be good enough in the language of where they're going in order to get there. And the only way they learn it is through their Danish teachers. So they're stuck and they can't get out. The suicide rate is really, really high. And yet when you ask them what do they think about the groups that are in Siberia and in Canada, which borders them on two different, through Alaska, and that's our family. So they're a nation that are currently, they're a family nation. It's small, but it's a nation that is under colonization by 3 different countries. And they can't get out because they can't, well, they only know what was happening in Greenland. I can't speak for Siberia. I can't speak for the Alaskan Inuits. But they can't learn because they can't get taught by their own teachers and can only be taught higher education by their colonizers. They can't escape. So to actively see that happening was really enlightening and life-changing. I recommend Greenland. I know it's hard to get to, but wow. So that's my joy and my fear.
Thanks for sharing, Cheryl, a beautiful travelogue as well. I had similar experiences in Hawaii, really enjoying all the presence of Native Hawaiian, culture and language, but also, feeling challenged with, Native Hawaiians asking people not to travel to the islands for risk of bringing COVID there. But I think one way to also flip it, just hearing, Cheryl, how inspired you were, travel is a powerful way to, take on a new perspective. And, how can we travel virtually through use of documentaries or through the internet? Or also, how can we take a traveler's mindset, that kind of new and inquisitive mindset to also where we are here, I think is another way to think about it.
Hey, Evan, I know Holy Cross had played that documentary at one point. Is there any future screenings planned?
It's available on YouTube. So I'm thinking it could be a cool opportunity to screen it at the church. I've watched it myself. Yeah, it was nice. It was well done. So maybe to be continued. And amazingly, now we're only 2 minutes shy of 11. So I have much appreciation and respect for all of our ministers who bring us for an hour. The movie Bernadette is, let's see if I can pull it up. It's called Pakachog, Where the River Bends.
There you go.
Where the river bends.
Very nice.
Well, thanks again, Sherry, for doing a hybrid facilitation. Thanks everyone for coming and joining today, and look forward to seeing you all soon.
You did a great job, Evan. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Inspiring, Evan. Great job.
Thanks,
Evan.
Beth.
Take care.
There we go back, did a good job.
You did a really, really good. Like that was like presentation quality. Like.
When I got here, I thought